I'm not interested in doing inch deep, mile wide, open worlds that seem like you have all this choice, but really, if you like scratch beneath the surface, you realize that there's just a hard shell underneath you, and like all those doors are painted, and it's just a movie set. You can't actually interact with anything in this world, I want to do like really small. I've always wanted to do small, self-contained, really deep worlds, and so that's kind of what we did. And you can do that as well on a Wii as you can on a PS3 or 360. So it's the same game on all platforms, except for the controls. And changing the controls really does change things in really interesting, radical, cool ways, which we can talk about if you want.
Now, it wasn't a straight line to get where Disney just said, hey, we got Oswald back. Hey, let's make a video game. There was a whole path to get to Oswald. And that's, I think, the big story is how did we get to Oswald?
Over to you.
Becky,
Okay. Well, Oswald is, of course, a silent film character that Walt Disney created and had much success with in the late 20s. Had done about 26 cartoons and was releasing them through a distributor named Charles Mintz, who worked for the White Film Corporation, and was distributing them through Universal, was the outlet for the films. And through a contract dispute with Walt Disney, who was asking for more money for the character and the cartoons.
My understanding was that he wanted more money to make the cartoons better.
Exactly.
That's what it came down to. It's not high on success, we'll give you more money.
Right. And so he went back east to renegotiate the contract, get some more money so he could make these cartoons better, because of course he was always pushing the envelope and trying to, heighten what he was doing in any cartoon medium or any medium at all for that matter throughout his life. So he was pushing the envelope and wanting more money for these cartoons. When he got back to New York, his distributor said, well, not only am I not going to give you any more money, but you're going to have to do things my way. And by the way, I've hired away all your animators. So when you get back to Hollywood, you're kind of up a tree. So Walt was devastated by this, and on the way home, by train, sent a couple of telegrams back home to his brother, and she said, don't worry, everything's okay. I've got a plan. And
telegrams are what we now call text messages.
Text messages. They take a little longer to get there.
Just a touch, yeah.
But so he telegrammed back, don't worry, I've got a plan. All will be well. And so on the way back, he thought up the character of Mickey Mouse. So Oswald is, as Warren has called him, Mickey's older brother. And the character kind of disappeared into obscurity. They did continue making them at Universal. They were made for a while by Rudy Ising and Hugh Harmon, who had indeed gone over to the other side. And then Walter Lantz, who's the creator of Woody Woodpecker, took on the character and made cartoons. So they made the cartoons up through the 60s. He changed radically from what the way Disney had been doing the character. And it was always it was very sad for Walt. It was a very kind of a bittersweet thing. Years later, when he and Walter Lantz kind of compared notes and made friends, and Walt.
Is there any record of those conversations?
I believe there may be. So I know they.
They are
I'm gonna look into that further. But they did remain. They remained friendly, the two of them. But the character changed quite dramatically and kind of stayed in the Universal stable of characters and was forgotten for many years. And so fast forward to 2006, Disney and Universal had some negotiations. Bob Iger, who is the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, came into the archives, and when he first came on as our new CEO, had some discussions with my predecessor, Dave Smith, about just telling him about the history of the company and getting a real deep dive into things that he needed to know. And one of the things that we talked about was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And Dave told him, Walt always had a soft spot for Oswald, would love to have him back. And fast forward to 2006, Al Michaels, the sportscaster at ESPN, was interested in taking a job at NBC as a sportscaster there and joining his friend John Madden, and wanted to get out of his contract with ESPN and move over to NBC, which was at the time owned by Universal. And so they were having negotiations of how much it would cost to let Al Michaels out of his contract. In the middle of the negotiations, all of a sudden Bob piped up with, okay, that money will be fine, and by the way, we want Oswald back. And my understanding is that everybody looked at each other, what's an Oswald? and had no idea they owned the character, and so they finally said, okay, you know. So we got back Oswald with all the Disney version of Oswald. So the
They
Oswald
trade for Al
character
Michaels.
post Disney, yes, they traded Al Michaels for a cartoon character. And what I think is really funny is Al Michaels, you know, got the joy of this, and he said it's better than the 4th round draft pick. Somebody else. But he was kind of delighted because he knew that someday he'd be a trivia question.
Hey, it was on the front page of USA Today. I
It
remember
was
reading that
a
story.
lot of press.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So at the studio, we had a welcome home party. We made buttons and we put up banners, and we had an Oswald party at the commissary. And then from then on, he kind of languished for a little while, but then more and almost immediately started thinking about Oswald, and it was one of the first major things that was done with the character.
You know, actually, I wasn't the one who started thinking about it. Give credit where credit is due. There was Disney Interactive had an intern group that they called the Think Tank, where they would go and get the best and brightest from universities all around the country. And that group was led by a guy named Chris Takami, who's awesome. Actually came up with the idea of using Oswald as a villain. And
I knew somebody in that group,
Yeah.
and one time when I went to visit, he said, "You can't tell anybody about this," and I went, "Okay," and he started showing me sketch designs of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in this kind of post-apocalyptic Disneyland.
That's interesting.
And you know, and he knew I was trustworthy. But I gotta tell you, it was hard for me to keep my mouth shut, and I did, but it looked so cool. And I thought the notion of bringing back Oswald squaring off against Mickey Mouse was just an insanely great idea. And when I finally heard that Warren was making it go forward, I'm going, finally, because now, you know, now I don't feel like I'm just keeping this to myself. Now everybody gets to hear about this. And I thought that was great.
I was out at Disney pitching a science fiction game and a fantasy game I wanted to do, and my agent told me go pitch this to Disney. I was just out pitching every publisher I could find, and I said, Disney's not. I mean, I love Disney, but they're not going to be interested in this stuff. I know it, you know. And he said, no, they're changing. You go talk to them. And so I'm pitching these ideas, and I'm halfway through my pitch, and I see all these Disney. I mean, I was like sweating because I'm a Disney fan from literally the day I was born, and my dad bought me a Pluto plush toy, right? And
You still have it, don't you?
I still have it. And I still have my first mouse ears and all. Anyway. But I was sitting at this table trying to be cool, and I was saying, I'm going to kill this guy when we get out of here. Because I told them they weren't going to be interested, because they're all sitting there like staring at their Blackberries and, you know, like doing something. And it turned out they were texting each other to say, should we talk to Warren about the Mickey game, you know? And so I get done with my pitch, and they said, so are you interested in doing any licensed games? And it turns out I was. And they said, well, how about any Disney licenses? And I said, well, yeah, give me Carl Barks. Yeah, okay, I want to do a duck game. Let me do a Carl Barks game. And I was really into Night Stalker at that time, and I had an idea in the back of my head for a Monster of the Week. You know, monsters are real, and there's one guy who knows it, and everybody else thinks he's crazy. I still think it'd be a great game. But they had just brought Night Stalker back on ABC, and they said, what do you think about Mickey? And I said, no. I don't make games for kids, and Disney hadn't done anything for Mickey. And it was so funny. I mean, so here I am, like, goober Disney fan, independent developer guy, in a room full of guys in suits and stuff. It's at Disney, and they said, we have an idea. Do you mind if we pitch you our idea? And I was going, yeah, you're Disney, of course. I'm going to say no. I mean, yeah, you probably have a couple of creative people here. And so they had a little PowerPoint deck that had 3 concepts in it: Oswald coming back, a world called Wasteland for forgotten and rejected characters, and the Phantom Blot of the film. And they said, you don't have to use any of this. This is just our idea, but you don't have to do any of it. Do whatever you want. And I said, why would I not do that? That is genius, you know? And there's a big difference between a game concept and a shipping game. It's like, I mean, what I told them was, acorn, oak tree, not the same thing. And I just said, nobody's doing that game except me. You know, I'm the guy. And so they said, okay, and I did concept work. There were 3 of us who did the initial concept. We wrote up 270 pages of documentation and all sorts of stuff that never made it to the screen. And we were off to the races. But those 3 ideas were the foundation. They are still the foundation of Wasteland. It all came from a bunch of college kids, you know, who did all credit, man. Those guys, that foundation gave us a real good start.
Which is great and ties right back into the history of Disney. I mean, a lot of the great stuff in the past came straight out of Cal Arts.
Yeah, exactly.
Including Cal Arts. I mean, that's...
Exactly, and Walt always said, it doesn't matter where a good idea comes from.
I'm such a Hollywood nerd that the whole Oswald story has...
Well, think about this. So these interns were working, I guess, in 2004, and I went to Disney for the first time in 2005, fall of 2005. When did we get the rights back?
2006.
Ding, 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 ding. So all of that initial concept work I was doing, nobody had any idea if we were going to get the rights to Oswald back. So I like when I read that in USA Today.
Lucky rabbit indeed.
Indeed.
Okay, we can make this game now. All right. I mean, I look. Disney had been trying to get the rights back for years, so it had nothing to do with the game really. But thank God the company got the rights to Oswald back when they did, because we would have been in a world of trouble without that.
Now there was, you guys are having a gallery or something, or showing somewhere?
Oh, well, right now there's the Archives is hosting an exhibit. It's currently, it just opened last week from today, and it is up at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley. They are the National Archives came to us and asked us to do an exhibit of Disney, and Ronald Reagan and Walt Disney were very good friends, and they are the largest of the presidential libraries in the system, so they have a big traveling or visiting exhibit space. So they asked us if we would do something, and so we did a big Treasures of the Archives exhibit that's about 12,000 square feet. It's big. There are 500 objects plus in it, and we're considering the Walt Disney's office as one object in this exhibit. It's that large, and so I've been spending, since last February, I've been nonstop doing this. But we just opened it.
Help us out.
I stopped to help out. Yeah, I went to Austin, went to E3. But we've been working very hard on this. We've done this. I think I'm very proud of it, this exhibit. But what's really cool is that it's the whole history of Disney from the very beginning. We've got some of Walt's Laugh-O-Gram stuff in there, his Alice comedies, and of course Oswald and Mickey and Silly Symphonies and things. It starts out with that and goes through Walt's lifetime and then shows some of the things from today. But it also connects the relationship between Walt Disney and the presidency. And so there's a big portion of the exhibit that is about the relationship between Walt and all the presidents, going back to FDR and up through today, the relationship that we have with all the presidents. So it's pretty exciting, but one of the nice things about it with Oswald is we were able to show, because of it's in a very prestigious museum setting, we were able to actually show some of the real artifacts. So we've got the contract that started the company, which is from 1923, pretty special piece.
I was going to ask if there are any plans for the 100th anniversary of the Disney Brothers studio.
I'm already working on that.
Okay.
But we also have those telegrams that I mentioned about a telegram between Charles Mintz and Walt asking, he didn't like, the very first cartoon that Walt did for Charles Mintz, the Oswald, was a cartoon called Poor Papa. And the character was kind of old and dumpy. And Mintz didn't like it. He wanted him snappier. He wanted to have, and suggested he wear a monocle and that sort of thing. And so, Walt got these long three telegrams from him, and then he made notes on the back and no monocle. And so we have those telegrams, which are kind of fun, and we're showing them in the exhibit, the real ones with Walt's notes and everything on the back. So it's pretty exciting. We got some, it's first script for Steamboat Willie and some things like that. So
First
if you're
Disneyland ticket I ever sold.
First Disneyland ticket, Walt Disney's office from the Disney Studios in Burbank. So there's a lot of really, really great stuff that we don't normally get to exhibit. So we'll plug in for that. Thank you.
Did you say that Walt did 26 Oswald?
There were 26 Oswalds, yeah. They came out. They started with the Alice comedies, which were, it was a cartoon series, a silent cartoon series with a little girl in a live-action little girl in a cartoon world. And kind of like the reverse of the Out of the Inkwell, where they had a cartoon character that populated the real world. And they did 56 of those from 23 to 26. And that had kind of run its course. They were losing their popularity, so he decided to do just a cartoon character and created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And he was very popular overnight. He was very funny, very, very funny character. And bit of a Lothario, little,
Well,
he was
very
a ladies'
cartoony.
man, very cartoony.
Yeah, he was more
Very-
cartoony than probably any other Disney character ever. I mean, you could
Take
patch
off
his
his
head and
tail.
remove his tail and use it for. as
Swim
a-
He gets
through
smashed
the shot.
flat and.
Yeah, he could turn into like a dozen little versions of himself and run around. I mean, he was,
It's very
he could
fun.
fly through the air just by
The
swimming.
ultimate
He's
superhero.
an
Exactly.
amazing, amazing character.
And he was naughty.
And half his cartoons are missing, you know.
Yeah, we own 14 of the 26.
Yeah, but then only the 14th was very recent.
Yeah, we recently found, Hybrid Hobos was up for auction. It was found in an archive in England, and so the company bought it. And we now have that, and then we found some drawings in the archives that we didn't know we had, that we digitized from a cartoon that's missing called Harem Scarum. And we recently were able to put those digital scans together and make a little, about 90-second little cartoon out of the drawings. The camel flies, yeah. So it's a lot of fun, and so we're searching all the time and trying to track down that stuff.
There's some new stuff from the archives that's hidden in Disney Epic Mickey 2. So there's little mysteries you can uncover.
So in the interest of time, you guys, because I know some of you have to get to other appointments and some of you really need to play the game. So we have about another half hour in this room. So what I wanted to do is kind of break up the formal Q&A session and invite you all to spend some more time with our spokespeople one-on-one if you have some additional questions.